Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music, and happy birthday to Steve Reich, one of my musical heroes. His birthday is October 3rd. This year, he'll be 89. So he's like my parents' age, right? And it was just like a mind-blowing, life-changing experience for me as a young composer and musician to hear music for 18 musicians for the first time. This sort of percolating ensemble working together like a machine, but so expressive and so organic. I needed to know everything I could about his music and sort of him as soon as possible. I didn't really get a chance to find out much about Reich until I got to college, where I really, because he's so generous, he comes and he teaches at schools all the time. I don't know if he does it as much anymore, but in the 70s when I was in school, he'd bop around to different schools and do like these week-long workshops. So I was able to like tag around to the 5-college system that I was in for a whole week and really take in what he was doing. His approach to music, and you can hear it in the music because the music explains itself, uses what he calls phasing, the interaction of parts basically, accumulation, gradually layering in more and more components of an existing melody or secondary parts to an arrangement, and then a kind of a playful relationship that I would just sort of think of as modal exchange, or some shifting modes, like whole hog. He'll be like percolating along in one scale, this intensely modally saturated texture, and then he'll head off into another one. His music has influenced so many, I guess I would say progressive EDM composers, film composers. I was working on a project just this past week for an ad agency, and the creative director said the 2 words I love to hear: Steve Reich. Well, I want to take a look at one of the really important components of his work today. It's called phasing, and it's a way of knitting together parts, really the same part using repetition, because we're talking about a minimalist composer, knitting together repetitive parts to create new and exciting textures. As I'm sitting out here right now, there's actually a spider reweaving their web, and that repetitive circular pattern, the energy of the spider's sort of creativity and sort of life, it reminds me a lot about Reich's music, because the music itself is a sort of an outgrowth of the process. There's a whole sort of direction in, I guess I would just say, minimalist music that's, I guess, functionally procedural. It sort of says, I'm going to do this and then this. I'm going to see what happens. So like any good composer, curiosity drives their work. Well, let's take a look at an older piece of mine, and then we'll talk a little bit about phasing. We'll talk about early tape pieces of Reich's, and I couldn't really do tape pieces. I mean, part of the thing about tape is as you shorten it or speed it up, things change. But in any case, we've got some vocals. We've got how to do that maybe with instrumental pieces. So we'll look at piano phase, and then maybe talk about some interference of periodicity, another way to create phasing. So let's hop into that. I'd like to start by taking a look at just a piece of music that I've written, and I think it appropriates some of the techniques that Reich has become really well known for, the use of accumulation of phrases, the interference of periodicities and interlocking rhythmic patterns, the sense of pulsing and sort of rhythmic propulsion. So it begins on A minor, A Dorian, you can see over here. Simple melody. And that pulse is right out of music for 18 musicians. And now we're in A flat Lydian. It's a really different world. The grouping of the melody is in 3/8 against the 4/16 of the pulse. And if you can hear it, the pulsing of the bass. And now the marimba has a 4, so it's a 3/4. So we've got basically a bunch of modal interchange going on here, right? We went A Dorian, A flat Lydian, back to the A Dorian, and then the A flat melodic minor, the third mode of it. This is a really beautiful dark sound, which only appears a couple times in this piece. Right here. Well, I just love this texture, and I've used this kind of thing a lot. Let's break down some of these techniques. So Steve Reich's earliest music is tape music. He grabbed loops of vocals, a preacher, a kid who'd been wrongly arrested, and created repeating patterns of tape loops, changing the speed of the loop for different tracks. And he built up these long textures, which eventually began to what he called phase. They'd interact with each other in really interesting ways. I've gone into my loop library in Logic and grabbed Byron Improv 7. So this is a simple idea. And let's see, I'll just mute. So here's Byron doing a little musical phrase. And it's going to loop coming up right here. Here it comes. Here's the loop. And I'm going to add a second version of Byron, but it's a little shorter. And that also is going to loop. And because it's shorter, every time it loops, it will become further and further out of phase. Let's add more instances of Byron. You can hear the rhythm has gotten more interesting, really pretty complicated. So I'm just like, a minute into this piece now. Let's just scroll forward. It actually creates new melodies, doesn't it? These are called resultant melodies or resultant rhythms. And they do something really pretty special for us. They sort of do some of the work of composing for us. I pan things hard left and right. I never exactly know what I'm going to get. And to some degree, we just have to surrender. I recommend listening to Come Out or It's Gonna Rain. Those are tape pieces, early tape pieces. Well, let's go on and take a look at how something like this might work with, say, a couple of instrumental parts. Here's the score for piano phase. And as you can see, it's got a pretty simple interlocking pattern in pattern number 1. The left hand has 3 simple notes, those 3. And then the right hand over the top, those 2. The right hand's going 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, while the left hand goes 1, 2, 3. And they drum, they alternate, so. And that's pattern number 1. And you can think of it as, it's the kind of thing I do all the time. You can think of it as a grouping of 6/8 that's alternated by 16th notes if you really want to think about the notation. But really what we're doing is we're drumming 2/3. Well, here's what it looks like on my screen. Reich's instruction is for the first pianist to begin at a specific tempo and the second pianist to join at the same tempo. They're playing in unison the same figure. The first pianist holds that tempo while the second pianist gradually speeds up. And the 2 parts go slightly out of phase. As they go out of phase, they shift and create new rhythms. and really new melodies. And then you're supposed to sit there on the new place, out of phase by a 16th, for a while longer than I have here. And here comes a new pattern. It's a beautiful sound that's like kind of like rain. Now I have things panned, not hard left and right, but a little bit left and right. I love this sound. It engages me the way, you know, the difference between the windshield wipers and the directional blinker on the car does. All right, enough of that. There are other ways of creating phase relationships. One of my favorite solo piano techniques is to have two phrases of differing length at the sort of simplest, say 4 notes in the left hand against perhaps 3 in the right. So 4 notes, 3 notes. And I can do them at the same time. And I get this least common multiple effect. Now, if you have a melody that does the same type of thing, a 16 16ths melody, say, and then a 12 16ths melody, or 16 eighth notes versus 12 eighth notes, they're going to offset with each other as well. And that's what we have here. This is interference of periodicity, and you get phasing, but you get phasing that's linked to, very strongly linked to a beat. We heard that in my first example. Here's interference of periodicity. And they're back in unison. And they're back in unison. Phasing and phase relationships. It's a fundamental part of Steve Reich's bag of tricks, as it were. There's other things we can look at. For instance, in my first piece, those beautiful modal exchanges and complicated 11th and 13th chords, the rich harmonies that give us a kind of pan-diatonic vision of the texture, or what I call modal saturation. I'm playing like almost all the notes of a given mode in order to create a very dense harmonic sort of sound. And that density is illuminated, it's unfolded by these interlocking parts, and phase relationships is a huge part of that approach, that trick. Happy birthday, Steve Reich. October 3rd, he'll be 89. He's an American treasure, and for me, probably the most important composer of my sort of young musical life. Well, I hope this has been useful. Like and subscribe and ding the bell to be notified when I do my videos. I'll see you next time.